everyone. Today we're reading the final 5 chapters of Genesis. And so Genesis is coming to an end, and then we'll do a summary on Genesis, which is going. I have chosen 60 verses to do a summary on. And you know how long the summaries usually are with 12 verses, so it's going to be 5 times longer. But we are going to be reading chapter 46, 47, 48, 49, 50. And my grandmother will read the first chapter.
And Israel took his journey with all that he had and came to, is that Beersheba?
Yeah.
And offered sacrifices unto the God of his father Isaac. And God spake unto Israel in the visions of the night, and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here am I. And he said, I am God, the God of thy father. Huh? Yeah, go get one off the bed, okay? And he said, I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not to go down into Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. I will go down with thee unto Egypt, and I will also surely bring thee up again. And Joseph shall put his hand upon thine eyes. And Jacob rose up from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried Jacob their father and their little ones. Where'd it go?
Oh, it's probably over.
And their wives in the wagons which Pharaoh had sent to carry him. And they took their cattle and their goods, which they had gotten in the land of Canaan, and came into Egypt, Jacob and all his seed with him, his sons and his sons' sons with him, his daughters and his sons' daughters, and all his seed brought he with him into Egypt. And these are the names of the children of Israel. You did this on purpose.
I was thinking that you were going to say that, but I didn't.
Which came into Egypt, Jacob and his sons, Reuben.
They're easier than usual, don't worry. They're actually easier than usual.
Jacob's firstborn. And the sons of Reuben, Hanok, Phalu, and Hezron, and Carmi. And the sons of
Simeon,
and Jemuel, and Jamin, and Ohad, Jachin, and Zohar, and Shaul, the son of Canaanitish woman.
Ooh, I forgot you're reading a different version. It's Canaanite for me.
And the sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and what he said. And the sons of Judah.
Judah?
Yeah.
Judea doesn't have an H, it has an E-A.
Oh, okay. Judah, and Onan, and Shelah, and Pharez, and Zerah. But and Onan died in the land of Canaan, and the sons of Pharez were Hezron and Hamul. And I know I'm probably messing these up. And the sons of Issachar, Tola, and Phuvah, and Joe, and Shimron. The sons of Zebulun, Sered, and Elon, and Jaleel. These be the sons of Leah, which she bare unto Jacob, and Pandan Aram, Padanaram. I just hit something that went all the way down. Hey, that's too close.
Back up.
verse 15.
I didn't read that about when money.
You went on a whole different chapter.
I was on 13 or 14.
No, 15.
These be the sons of Leah, which she bare, and oh, I've already read that. I didn't. And his daughter Dinah, and all the souls of his sons and his daughters were 30 and 3. And the sons of Gad, Ziphion, and Haggai, Shuni, Esbon, Eri, Arodi, and the sons of Asher, Jimnah, and Aisha, and Isu, and Beria, and Sirah, their sister, and the sons of Bira, Heber, and Mashiel. All right, boy,
What verse are you
that
on?
was not nice.
What verse? I'll finish it.
18.
Okay. These were the children born to Jacob by Zilpah, whom Laban had given to his daughter Leah, 16 in all. The sons of Jacob's wives, Rachel, and I've just got the easy ones, Joseph and Benjamin, in Egypt, Manasseh and Ephraim, were born to Joseph by Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, the son of Benjamin, Bela, Baker, Ashbel, Jura, Naaman, Ehi, Rosh, Muphin, and Ard. These were the sons of Rachel who were born to Jacob, 14 in all. The son of Dan, Husham. The sons of Naphtali, Jehazel, Guni, Jezer, and Shilem. These were the sons born to Jacob by Bilhah, whom Laban had given to his daughter Rachel, 7 in all.
Put those chairs back.
All those who went to Egypt with Jacob, those who were his direct descendants, not counting his sons, wives numbered 66 persons, with the 2 sons who had been born to Joseph in Egypt. The members of Jacob's family, which went to Egypt, was 70 in all. Now Jacob sent Judah ahead of him to Joseph to get directions to Goshen. When they arrived in the region of Goshen, Joseph had the chariot made ready and went to Goshen to meet his father Israel. As soon as Joseph appeared before him, he threw his arms around his father and wept for a long time. Israel said to Joseph, "Now I am ready to die, since I have seen for myself that you are still alive." Then Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, "I will go up and speak to Pharaoh, and will say to him, 'My brothers and my father's household, who are living in the land of Canaan, have come to see me. The men are shepherds, they tend livestock, and they have brought along their flocks and herds and everything they own. When Pharaoh calls you and asks, what is your occupation? You should answer, your servants have tended the livestock from our boyhood on, just as our fathers did. Then you will be allowed to settle in the region of Goshen, for all shepherds are detestable to Egyptians.'" I'm going to read chapter 47 as well. Bro! Stop messing with my jacket. Jesse, can you get my jacket away from Billy? Joseph went and told Pharaoh, "My father and brothers with their flocks and herds, everything they own, have come from the land of Canaan and are now in Goshen." He chose 5 of his brothers and presented them before Pharaoh. Pharaoh asked his brothers, "What is your occupation?" "Your servants are shepherds," they replied to Pharaoh, "just as our fathers were." They also said to him, "We have come to live here for a while, because the famine is severe in Canaan, and your servants' flocks have no pasture. So now please let us servants settle in Goshen." Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Your father and your brothers have come to you, and the land of Egypt is before you. Settle your father and your brothers in the best part of the land. Let them live in Goshen, and if you know of any among them with special ability, put them in charge of my own livestock." Then Joseph brought his father Jacob in and presented him before Pharaoh. After Jacob blessed Pharaoh, Pharaoh asked him, "How old are you?" And Jacob said to Pharaoh, "The years of my pilgrimage are 130. My years have been few and difficult, and they do not equal the years of the pilgrimage of my fathers. Then Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from his presence. So Joseph settled his father and his brother in Egypt and gave them property in the best part of the land, the district of Ramses, as Pharaoh directed. Joseph also provided his father and his brothers and all his father's household with food, according to the number of their children. There was no food, however, in the land. The whole region became the famine was severe. Both Egypt and Canaan wasted away because of the famine. Joseph collected all the money and that was to be found in Egypt and Canaan in payment for the grain they were buying, and he brought it to Pharaoh's place when the money of the people of Egypt and Canaan was gone. All Egypt came to Joseph and said, "Give us food. Why should we die before your eyes? Our money is all gone." "Then bring your livestock," said Joseph. "I will sell your food in exchange for your livestock, since your money is gone." So they brought the livestock to Joseph, and he gave them food in exchange for the horses, the sheep and goats, the cattle and donkeys, and he brought them through that year with food in exchange for all their livestock. When that year was over, they came to him the following year and said, "We cannot hide from our Lord the fact that since our money is gone and our livestock belongs to you, there's nothing left for our Lord except our bodies and our land. Why should we perish before your eyes, we and our land as well? Buy us and our land in exchange for food, and with our land we'll be in bondage to Pharaoh. Give us seed so that we may live and not die, and that the land may not become desolate." So Pharaoh brought all the land in Egypt for Pharaoh. So Joseph brought all the land in Egypt for Pharaoh. The Egyptians, one and all, sold their fields because the famine was too severe for them. The land became Pharaoh's, and Joseph reduced the people to servitude from one end of Egypt to the other. However, he did not buy the land of the priests, because they received a regular allotment from Pharaoh and had brought food enough from the allotment Pharaoh gave them. That is why they did not sell the land. Joseph said to the people, "Now that I have brought you a new land today, Pharaoh, here is seed for you so you can plant the ground. But when the crop comes in, give a fifth of it to Pharaoh. The other 4/5 you may keep as seed for the fields and as food for yourselves and your households and your children. You have saved our lives," they said. "May we find favor in your eyes of our Lord. We will be in bondage to Pharaoh." So Joseph established it as a law concerning land in Pharaoh, still in force today, that a fifth of the produce belongs to Pharaoh. It was only the land of the priests that did not become Pharaoh's. Now the Israelites settled in Egypt in the region of Goshen. They acquired property there and were fruitful and increased greatly in number. Jacob lived in Egypt 17 years, and the years of his life were 147. When the time drew near for Israel to die, he called for his son Joseph and said to him, "If I have found favor in your eyes, put your hand under my thigh and promise that you will show me kindness and faithfulness. Do not bury me in Egypt, but when I rest with my fathers, carry me out of Egypt and buy me where they are buried." I meant to say bury me where they are buried, not buy me. "Bury me where they are buried. I will do as you say," he said. "Swear to me," he said. Then Joseph swore to him, and Israel worshipped as he leaned on the top of his staff. You want to read chapter 48?
Is that? Yeah.
Manasseh and Ephraim.
Chapter 48.
Yeah, Genesis.
And it came to pass after these things that one told Joseph, "Behold, thy father is sick." And he took with him his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim.
I always call him Manasseh and Ephraim.
And one told
And Ephraim.
Ephraim. And one told Jacob and said, "Behold, thy son Joseph cometh unto thee." And Israel strengthened himself and sat upon the bed. And Jacob said unto Joseph, "God Almighty appeared unto me at Luz in the land of Canaan, and blessed me, and said unto me, Behold, I will make thee fruitful and multiply thee, and I will make of thee a multitude of people, and will give this land to thy seed after thee for an everlasting possession. And now thy 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, which were born unto thee in the land of Egypt, before I came unto thee into Egypt, are mine, as Reuben and Simon.
Nice one. I think that's Simeon. It's
Simeon.
not spelled like Simon, it's spelled like Simeon.
Yeah, it is. They shall be mine. I can't see good. And thy issue which thou
Is that anybody?
Oh yeah. And thy issue which thou begettest after them shall be thine, and shall be called after the name of their brethren. Brethren, how do you say it?
Brethren.
In their inheritance. And as for me, when I came from Padan, Rachel died by me in the land of Canaan in the way, when yet there was but a little way to come into
Ephra?
Ephra. And I buried her there in the way of Ephra. Is that what it is? Ephra. The same as Bethlehem. I've never seen it like that. And Israel beheld Joseph's sons and said, Who are these? And Joseph said unto his father, They are my sons, whom God hath given me in this place. And he said, Bring them, I pray thee, unto me, and I will bless them. Now the eyes of Israel were dim for age, so that he could not see. And he brought them near unto him, and he kissed them and embraced them. Ayla, you can't get that close, it'll burn. She needs to go to bed, maybe. And Israel said unto Joseph, I had not thought to see thy face, and lo, God hath showed me also thy seed. And Joseph brought them out from between his knees, and he bowed himself with his face to the earth. What does that mean? What does yours say for 12?
And Joseph removed them from Israel's knees and bowed down with his face to the ground.
Oh, okay. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near unto him. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid upon. He got the bear.
Yeah.
He does that all the time.
What did he do? No, man, don't say it.
And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it upon Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand upon Manasseh's head, guiding his hands wittily, for Manasseh was the firstborn. And he blessed Joseph and said, God, before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac did walk, the God which fed me all my life long unto this day, the angel which redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, and let my name be named on them in the name of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. And when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, it displeased him, and he held up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head unto Manasseh's head. And Joseph said unto his father, Not so, my father, for this is the firstborn, but thy right hand upon his head. And his father refused and said, I know it, my son, I know it. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. And he blessed them that day, saying, In thee shall Israel bless, saying, God make thee as Ephraim and as Manasseh. And he set Ephraim before Manasseh. And Israel said unto Joseph, Behold, I die, but God shall be with you, and bring you again into the land of your fathers. Moreover, I have given to thee one portion above thy brethren. which I took out of the hand of the Amorite with my sword and with my bow.
Chapter 49. Then Jacob called for his sons and said, "Gather around so I can tell you what will happen to you in the days to come. Assemble, listen, sons of Jacob, listen to your father Israel. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, the first sign of my strength, excelling in honor, excelling in power, turbulent as the waters. You will no longer excel, for you went up onto your father's bed, onto my couch, and defiled it. Simeon and Levi are brothers, their swords are weapons of violence.
My phone just fell behind the couch. Go ahead.
Let me not enter the council, let me not join the assembly, for they have killed men in their anger and hamstrung oxen as they pleased. Cursed be their anger so fierce and their fury so cruel. I will scatter them in Jacob and disperse them in Israel. Judah, your brothers will praise you. Your hand will be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's son will bow down to you. You are a lion's cub, Judah. You return from the prey, my son. Like a lion, he crouches and lies down. Like a lioness, who dares to rouse him? The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until to whom it belongs shall come, and the obedience of the nation shall be his. He will tether his donkey to a vine, his colt to the choicest branch. He will wash his garments in wine, his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes will be darker than wine, his teeth whiter than milk. Zebulun will live by the seashore and become a haven for ships. His border will extend towards Sidon. Issachar is a row-boned donkey, lying down among the sheep pens. When he sees how good is his resting place, and how pleasant is his land, he will bend his shoulders to the burden, and submit to forced labor. Dan will provide justice for his people, as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan will be a snake by the roadside, a viper along the path that bites the horse's heels, so that its riders tumbles backward. I look for your deliverance, Lord. Gad will be attacked by a band of raiders, but he will attack them at the hills. Asher's food will be rich. He will provide delicacies fit for a king. Naphtali is a doe set free that bears beautiful fawns. Joseph is a fruitful vine near a spring whose branches climb over a wall. With bitterness archers attacked him. They shot at him with hostility, but his bow remained steady. His strong arm stayed limber. Because of the hand of the mighty one of Jacob, because of the shepherd, the rock of Israel, because of your father God who helps you, because of the Almighty who blesses you
Sleep. I gotta get them in bed.
with blessings of the skies above, because of the deep springs below, blessings of the breast and womb.
It's okay.
Your father's blessings are greater than the blessings of the ancient mountains, than the bounty of the age-old hills. That all these rest on the head of Benjamin, on Joseph, on the brow of the prince among his brothers. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning he devours the prey, in the evening he divides the plunder. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father said to them when he blessed them, giving each the blessing appropriate to him.
Sorry, I had to hit my leg. Sorry, you won't finish, Haven, and I'm gonna. I think it's time to get down.
I'll finish reading it and then I'll continue the lesson.
Okay.
Then he gave them these instructions. I am about to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave in the field of Ephron the Hittite, the cave in the field of Machpelah, near Mamre in Canaan, which Abraham brought along with the field as a burial place from Ephron the Hittite. There Abraham and his wife Sarah were buried. There Isaac and his wife Rebekah were buried. And there I buried Leah. The field and the cave in it were brought from the Hittites. When Jacob had finished giving instructions to his sons, he drew his feet up into the bed, breathed his last, and was gathered to his people. Joseph threw himself on his father and wept over him and kissed him. Then Joseph directed the physicians in his service to embalm his father Israel. So the physicians embalmed him, taking a full 40 days, for that was the time required for embalming. And the Egyptians mourned for him 70 days. When the days of mourning had passed, Joseph said to Pharaoh's court, "If I have found favor in your eyes, speak to Pharaoh for me. Tell him, my father made me swear an oath, and he said, I am about to die. Bury me in the tomb I dug for myself in the land of Canaan." go up and bury my father, then I will return. Pharaoh said, Go up and bury your father as he made you swear to do. So Joseph went to bury his father. All Pharaoh's officials accompanied him. The dignitaries of his court and all the dignitaries of Egypt, besides all the members of Joseph's household and his brother and those belonging to his father's household, only their children and their flocks and herds were left in Goshen. Chariots and horsemen also went up with him. It was a very large company. When they reached the threshing floor of Atad, near the Jordan, they lamented loudly and bitterly. And there Joseph absorbed a 7-day period of mourning for his father. When the Canaanites who lived there saw the mourning of the threshing floor of Atad, they said, The Egyptians are holding a solemn ceremony of mourning. That is why that place near the Jordan is called Abel Mizraim. So Jacob's son did as he had commanded them. They carried him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave in the field of Machpelah near Mamre, which Abraham had brought along with the field as a burial place from Ephron the Hittite. After burying his father, Joseph returned to Egypt together with his brothers and all the others who had gone with him to bury his father. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, What if Joseph holds a grudge against us and pays us back for all the wrongs we did to him? So they sent word to Joseph saying, Your father left these instructions before he died. This is what you are to say to Joseph. I ask you to forgive your brothers the sins and the wrongs they committed in treating you so badly. Now please forgive the sins of the servants of the God of your father. When that message came to him, Joseph wept. His brothers then came and threw themselves down before God. We are your slaves, they said. But Joseph said to them, Don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then do not be afraid. I will provide for you and your children. And he reassured them and spoke kindly to them. Joseph stayed in Egypt along with all his father's family. He lived 110 years and saw the third generation of Ephraim's children. Also the children of Machir, son of Manasseh, were placed at birth on Joseph's knees. Then Joseph said to his brothers, I am about to die, but God will surely come to your aid and take you up out of this land to the land he promised an oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Joseph made the Israelites swear an oath and said, God will surely come to your aid, and then you must carry my bones up from this place. So Joseph died at the age of 110, and after they embalmed him, he was placed in a coffin. He was placed in a coffin in Egypt. So that was the last parts of Genesis. So Genesis is over. We'll be starting on Exodus soon. So let's go over that. The Israelites did become a great nation, and Jacob's descendants eventually returned to Canaan as God's promise. And the book of Exodus, which we'll be starting on soon, recounts the story of Israel's slavery in Egypt for 400 years. And the book of Joshua gives an exciting account of the Israelites entering and conquering Canaan, the promised land. So God told Jacob to go to a faraway land in chapter 46, but God was alongside him the entire journey. When new situations are brought to you, it is fine to feel fear, but remember God is always with you. So if God tells you, hey, go from your country, go to Mexico, or go to Africa, and it's God directly telling you, he's definitely going to be right along with you. If you're going through scary situations, you know what God always says is do not be afraid, or don't be afraid, depending on what version you're reading. So there's no need to worry no matter what pressures put on you, what struggles you're going through. You're always able to overcome it as long as you get your strength from God. Jacob, though, never returned to Canaan. This was a promise to his descendants that they would return, which why it says, Joseph's own hand will close your eyes, which refers to Jacob being at Jacob's side and attending to him at his death. It was God's promise to Jacob that he would never know the pain of being separated from loved ones again.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Get up. Let's go to bed.
So Jacob moved his family to Egypt, but they wanted to live apart from the Egyptians in part to help their, keep their identity as God's chosen people intact. To ensure this, Joseph told Pharaoh and brought um, five of his family members with him. By the way, he told Pharaoh uh, that they were shepherds, although Pharaoh may have been sympathetic to shepherds and nomads. The other Egyptians didn't willingly accept them. Maybe, you want to say hi, Ellen? I'm good.
They got it.
Yeah.
Alright,
So,
turn out all the hospital lights when you get through hospital.
although Pharaoh may have been sympathetic to shepherds, his culture would not allow the Egyptians to willingly accept shepherds among them. The strategy worked, and Jacob's family was able to benefit from Pharaoh's generosity as well as from the Egyptians' prejudice. You know, I love you.
I love you. Is Billy out here?
I don't think so. So Joseph's faithfulness affected his entire family, and we all know what Joseph went through. I hope we all. For the past few videos, we talked about everything that Joseph went through. He was imprisoned, enslaved, accused of being a sexual harasser by Potiphar's wife. He was, put in prison. He was, betrayed by his brothers. He was sold. And even though all that had happened, which was also a course of 14 years, by the way, that he was going through those struggles, he remained faithful, which is how we should do. Instead of despairing, we should faithfully serve God and allow Him to help us through the struggles. We may not always see the effects of God helping us immediately, but that could mean it could be over time. That means God can be leading us out of those struggles and we don't know it until we actually start accepting God. Alright, if you're in a struggle and you don't believe God can't help you, you're not going to be able to see your way out clearly because your eyes are not open. But if you do accept God, your eyes are open and you know that even though it's not happening this instant, it's going to happen eventually, that He's going to lead you out of it. We may not always see the effects of our faith, but we can be sure that God honors, faithfulness. Jacob had Joseph, promise to bury him in his homeland. Few things were written in this culture, so a person's word carried as much force as a written contract does today. People today seem to find it easy to say, I didn't mean that. God's people, however, are to speak the truth and live the truth. So we need to let our words be as binding as a written contract. So this means whenever you make a vow, you need to finish the vow. Whenever you promise someone something, you have to promise them, no matter the circumstances that will occur or try and be an obstacle between you and that promise. As we talked about in Ecclesiastes, if you're going to make a vow, make sure to fulfill that vow or it becomes empty, especially when you're making a vow to God. If you make a vow to God, you're going to have to fulfill that vow, because if you don't, that's, lying to God pretty much. So our words are as powerful as our contracts. Right now, if I stop blaspheming, that's powerful words towards God, and He's not going to like it. But if I start praising God, again, powerful words to God, and He's going to accept it. So our words are like binding contracts. Jacob chose Ephraim instead of Manasseh and gave him the greater blessing. And, Joseph objected. He really didn't like this, but Jacob refused because God ordered the blessing upon Ephraim. And God can work, so this shows that God can work unexpectedly. Ugh. So He chooses people not by appearance, looks, beauty, strength, talent, but He chooses like for example, He chose Joseph, who among his brothers, became a slave, and he was even in prison. He was like at the lowest of the low compared to his brothers who were living regular lives back then, when he was like enslaved and stuff. So, yeah, we see God can be unexpected with His works, but He always can choose the less obvious person. And so God can even use you to carry out his plan, and if he personally is using you, I would accept that. I mean, there's no better honor than God saying, hey, I want you to go out and lead my word among your people. So even if you think you don't have the qualifications, God can choose you. My youth pastor said this, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. I'm pretty sure it might be the opposite way around. Who cares? But, so, yeah. I mean, I guess we all care, that was a joke. But Jacob was in despair when he thought Joseph died, but God's plan allowed Jacob to regain his son and even some grandsons, 2 grandsons. So we see that situations and circumstances are never bad enough for God not able to handle. There's no struggle, no circumstance that God cannot overcome. I mean, he made everything. If that doesn't make you believe that he can't overcome anything, then I don't know where else to go. But I mean, there's plenty other places to go. But if you believe in God, but you don't believe he can't overcome anything, that's why there's the Bible. He lifted Joseph out of his misery. There's Revelations, for instance. He shook Mount Sinai, his thunders, his lightning. He departed the Red Sea. And you may say, oh, Moses departed the Red Sea, but Moses could have never done that if it wasn't for God. So, yeah. So, we don't ever need to despair because we have a loving God, and we don't yet know what good he may bring out of a seemingly hopeless situation. You may be stuck in life. You may not be able to get out of like a certain situation. You may be in court. You may be on what is it called? Probation. But yeah, that's what I was trying to say. It's P word, probation. You may be in court, probation. You may be in jail, and you probably didn't need to go to jail in this situation. But no matter the situation that is right now happening, there's no way that God can't handle it. God is able to handle everything. He is saddened and burdened by our sins, but that doesn't mean he can handle everything, though. He's able to handle everything. He's able to take care of all of us. He's able to love all of us, even through the burden of our sin. So, yeah, Jacob thought of God as a shepherd. In his old age, he could clearly see his dependence on God. This shows a different attitude than the one Jacob had in his deceitful youth. Instead of going life our own way, we need to let God be our shepherd and let him lead us as he led Jacob. So, yeah, it doesn't matter our youth. It doesn't matter our past. God has forgiven us. We simply ask for forgiveness. He has forgiven us. That's why Jesus died on the cross. And, I want to tell you, I don't know what Jehovah's Witness believes. I'm still, researching Jehovah's Witness for the disproving religion video. But I met a Jehovah's Witness the other day, and they told me that Jesus died on a stake. I was really confused. I was bombarded, bewildered. I know Jesus died on the cross. It says that in the Bible numerous times, even after the Gospels, even after Acts, even in Paul's epistles. It says Jesus died on the cross. It just bewildered me so much. So anyway, I just saw my address come into a text message, but it was almost my address. I got a little confused. I got a little scared too. I was like, whoa, how'd they know? Yeah, so Jacob had a deceitful youth, yet he saw how dependable and how much better he had grown, and he saw God as his shepherd. And so this means that Jacob didn't do this on his own. This means he saw that God helped him through this, and this is why his name's Israel. He struggles with God, and that doesn't mean that he's struggling to have God. That means God is struggling alongside with us. This means that even though we're going through a situation, we're not alone. God is with us, and so that's why he leads us out of these struggles. That is why he leads us out of these problems and these events that occur in our lives, And so, no matter our past, God's going to help us. He's going to lead us out of sin, and that's what we learned from Jacob. Jacob's one of the most important patriarchs, in my opinion. Jacob, Joseph, and David are some of my favorites. But yeah, Jacob was given these. Talking about Ephraim and Manasseh. Jacob was given these young boys land occupied by the Philistines and Canaanites. His gifts became reality when the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh occupied the east and west sides of the Jordan River. So we see his promises were fulfilled. And so, yeah, Jacob blessed each of his sons and then made predictions of each one's future. Yeah, and so the way they had lived played a part in Jacob's blessings and prophecy. So what this tells us is our past can affect our future. Like we've mentioned this before multiple times, sin can have a way to come back and lash back at us. Like you can go sin 5 years earlier, and then it can come and attack you, years later. Like, hey, you stole from a store 5 years ago. People just finally start catching on to it. You can get charges pressed on you. So hey, that's a way sin can come right back on you, and thievery is a sin. So, yeah, the way we act and behave is a factor that can affect the future by a lot. And for the short run on Earth, our actions on Earth can affect later times on Earth. Like for example, the stealing example I used, it can affect how what can happen later on in life, and then our sin on Earth as well can affect us in the long run. What I mean by that is, if we sin right now and we don't ask for forgiveness, if we don't repent, if we don't admit that Jesus saved us, it's going to affect us way later on that day of judgment. And so we see sin and our actions have a way to play a part in our future, but that is why we shouldn't do those negative actions or those, because they're not even necessary for our life. We don't need to sin. We want to sin, but we don't need to sin. It's a temptation, not a necessity. So don't go along with the temptation, indulge into necessity, which the necessity is following Jesus. And you can't force it on everyone, but it's a necessity to everyone. You encourage that necessity. People need to acknowledge that it is a necessity rather than deny it. And some people who deny it haven't even read the Bible. So that's why you've read the Bible, and that's why you need to go out and spread the word as well. So the oldest son was supposed to receive a double inheritance, but Reuben lost his special honor. We remember why? Because Reuben slept with his concubine. This is why it says you had defiled in my bed. That's why Jacob said that. And so, turbulent and untrustworthy, especially in his younger days, Reuben was. He had gone so far as to sleep with one of his father's concubines, which was Berha, I believe. Jacob could not give his birthright blessing to such a dishonorable son. So, hey, we get inheritance from our father and mother when they die, and you won't, maybe you want a good part of that inheritance, but if you're really rude, if you dishonor your mother or father, how are you going to receive a good part of the inheritance? Or even in your life, Christmas gifts, birthday gifts, if you rude and dishonorable to your parents, you might not receive a good gift as you might have received if you were honorable. So if you want good gifts, I would start being way more honorable than you might be. And I mean, if you're honorable, then you're straight, you're in line. That's good. If you're dishonorable, you need to fix yourself, and that's why we're talking about it right now. We can see also dishonorable actions. We won't receive heaven, and if we're dishonorable to our Father who art in heaven, how you expect to be able to make it to heaven? You can't be dishonorable to the person who's literally having the keys to heaven. So. Yeah, and then we see, Judah had a sinful past, but he was still granted a good blessing, and this might have been because Judah had redeemed himself greatly. God had chosen Judah to be the ancestral line of Israel's, line of kings, and that includes Jesus, and this is why it says, the scepter will not depart from Judah. And so, yes, this was because Judah changed his lifestyle for the better. So we see how we've been talking about, how sin affects our future, that it's only a temptation, not a necessity. When we go along with those necessities of following Jesus, our future is going to be a lot better, and our lives up in heaven are going to be way more fruitful than it would be if we sin, which sin will be able not to be able to go to heaven, but instead we'll be in the lake of fire, separation from God, Hades, hell, whatever you want to call it. But good reason why we should not sin. We see Judah get a better blessing for his change of lifestyle, from his departure from sin. And, we see Reuben get quite the opposite because of his sin. So, hey, two parallels right there. My nose is itchy, dude. Then we see it says in chapter 49, verse 10, until he is whom it belongs shall comes. That's just a little part of it. May also be translated until Shiloh comes. Shiloh may be another name for the Messiah because its literal meaning is sent, like the Messiah was sent to us. Shiloh might also refer to the tent of meeting set up at the city of Shiloh. I think that's mentioned in Joshua. Jacob told Dan, we're also on the blessings, by the way. Jacob told Dan, I look for your deliverance, Lord. He was telling Dan he would be a strong leader if he put his trust in God, not in his natural ability of strength. So, yeah, like we mentioned earlier, some who are strong, beautiful, talented might find it easier to put them trust in themselves rather than God because they think they have the qualifications already, but they don't. The first sign that you don't have the qualifications is not putting your trust in God. Remember how we talked about those 5 steps of faith, and the very first step was trust in God? That's what we're talking about right now. So, yeah, we need to put our faith in God. We need to put our trust in Him and not into ourselves. Like, we'll put, basically, when we do that for ourselves, we'll put trust in flesh, which flesh is the opposite God. It's separation from God. We're not going to be able to achieve anything if we just go on the opposite path of truth. So, yeah, we need to always thank God for the gifts of beauty, strength, and talent, by the way. I thank God for being able to understand His wisdom. I say every single time in my prayer at the end of the video. And, I don't give myself the reputation for knowing God's word. I thank Him for giving the wisdom to me. It's not me who understands it. It's His wisdom, is given upon me. I wouldn't be able to understand any of this if I didn't have this, mind that He had given me. So I'm thankful for that. And that's how we should be thankful for our good attributes. And even if we consider our attributes bad, if we call ourselves ugly, that's not true. We were all made in the image of God. We're all imprinted with the face of God. Not the face of God. You know what I mean. So, we need to be thankful either way. Even if you think you're ugly, even if you think you're stupid, even if you think you're weak, you're actually strong, beautiful, and, talented. So, that, just because, you look different from other people doesn't make you any better or any worse than them. It actually, means we're all the same. We're all sinners. We all are neither higher than each other, and we are neither lower than each other. We are all sinners. We all have only one path to go to God, and that's through Jesus. So we're all equal, whether you like it or not. So we're going to read chapter 49, verses 23 through 24 real quick. With bitterness archers attacked him. They shot at him with hostility, but his bow remained steady. His strong arms stayed limber. Because of the hand of the mighty one of Jacob, because of the shepherd of rock of Israel. So, these verses celebrate the times God rescued Joseph when his enemies attacked him. Joseph was able to draw closer to God as adversity drew closer. So, through our struggles and afflictions, we shouldn't stray from God, but come closer to Him and trust Him with our problems. When adversity comes upon us, we talked about this in Ecclesiastes and the, lessons on faith. And I think we talked about it in Lamentations. But when adversity comes upon us, we can't let it strike us with a, sword with our blood on it. We have to block that sword with that shield of faith that has talked about to, Abraham. I think it's chapter 15, verse 1 that says, God is my shield of faith. And it's also talked about later on in the New Testament, the epistles of Paul. I believe it's Ephesians or 2 Timothy. I'm not sure. But, so, when Joseph was attacked by adversity, he grew closer to God, actually, and adversity drew back. And that's why we should believe in God. He helps us go through our struggles. So now we see Jacob dies at the age of 147, and Joseph mourned for months. When someone close to us die, I hope you don't feel happy, but we're going to be sad. And we may need time to grieve to death, and that's all right to be, crying. So, and also crying and sharing our feelings with others also help. we need to allow ourselves and others the freedom to grieve over the loss of our loved ones. We can't just force it out of our life because it, causes us to feel sad. God does. God doesn't want us to feel sad, but He allows us to feel sad whenever we need mourning time, time for grievance. So it's all right to do that. And so we see Jacob get embalmed, and this is usually like for Egyptians, so it's kind of unusual for the nomadic shepherds. So yeah, Egyptians, believing that the dead went to the next world in their physical bodies, the Egyptians embalmed bodies to preserve them so they could function in the world to come. Jacob's family allowed him to be embalmed as a sign of courtesy and respect to the Egyptians. And, so it was part of the Egyptian culture. Um, it wouldn't, I don't think it's wrong to do that, to be embalmed, even though it was not part of the culture. God allowed it still. God didn't have a problem with it at all. So, I mean, they weren't doing it, because they believed that, Jacob's body was being preserved, for his physical body was being preserved for the afterlife. They were doing it as a sign of respect because, the Egyptians treated them so well. So, whenever someone does something for us, and let's say he's a Catholic, all right, he asked for your prayers because he's gone through something, and he's helped us a lot, by the way. Remember that. And he asked for your prayers. He's a Catholic, and we don't have to, believe what Catholics believe. Like, they don't believe what Protestants believe. They don't believe what most non-denominational people believe. They have a different branch of Christianity that most people find a little controversial. I don't believe in the Catholic side of Christianity. I believe in the non-denominational, the Protestant side, moreover. But you would have to, pray for him. And not because he's a Catholic, not because it's required by Catholics, but because you love him, you have respect for him. You don't respect, that he thinks Mary is sinless. You don't respect that, he has to, do different sacraments than Protestant or non-denominational. But because you respect him and love him, and he's done good for us, so why not do good for him? It's like saying the same thing as saying God forgives us, so why not forgive others? So yeah, Joseph proving himself trustworthy to Pharaoh, and as Pharaoh's advisor as well. So when we are able to prove ourselves worthy and trustworthy and reliable, do so, even in minor situations. We can earn privileges and freedom often come after proving ourselves trustworthy. Like I said, this goes back to those Christmas gifts. If we're dishonorable to our family members, how do you expect to get good Christmas gifts? If you're dishonorable to God, how do you expect to get into heaven? Alright? So, hey, you need to prove yourself. I mean, you don't need to prove yourself to God. As long as you walk down a path of faith, you've already done it. You've already shown to God that you love him and that you truly are doing everything for him. Abraham also had purchased a cave in the field of Machpelah as a burial place for his wife Sarah. It was for the entire family. Jacob was buried in there by his sons, so was Isaac and Abraham. To be buried in this cave was a way for them to express their faith in God's promise to give their descendants the land of Canaan. So, yeah, some, historical, geological facts. But, yeah, Joseph's brothers were also worried that, he might try and get revenge now that Jacob died, but Joseph forgave them and also reassured them, even offering to take care of their families. Joseph demonstrated how God graciously accepts us even though we don't deserve it. We should forgive as God forgives. So, for example, I think Joseph is one of the greatest examples of forgiveness in the Bible. Heck, his 11 brothers teamed up on him and tried to put him in a cistern and kill him, and then they were like, hey, his bloods can't be on our hand. We won't be able to deal with that guilt. So instead, they just sell him. So, yeah, Joseph forgave him though, even after all of that, and that shows that it's not impossible to forgive people. The best top one example of forgiveness is Jesus on the cross saying, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do," and that's just the greatest example of forgiveness. It's just so amazing that even after all that, Jesus, or Joseph could have forgiven them. So it's just amazing. And that's how we should be. Just because someone hurts us doesn't mean we hate them for our rest of life. God actually says the opposite. He demands us to be the opposite. We should love them rather than hate them. We should pray for our enemies. We should respect and love our enemies. We don't have to respect what they do. We don't have to love what they do. We can We're allowed to hate sin. It says that in Ecclesiastes. It says there's a time for love and a time for hate. And that hate means to hate sin. That life keeps reconnecting. So God brought good from Joseph's struggles, and the story of Joseph really demonstrates how God gives good out of evil when you really trust him. This is why you should trust God with your struggles. I mean, hey, we've been talking about this throughout the entirety of Genesis. Joseph was ready to die. He was assured God was going to keep his promise. This, an example of good faith right here. Your faith is like a muscle. It grows with exercising your trust. Your faith can be as strong as Joseph's. Then at your death, you can be confident that God will fulfill all his promises to you and to all those faithful to him who may live after you. So we see another example of this type of faith with Paul in the New Testament. Paul was like so sure he was ready to die. He knew that his faith had gotten him into heaven. I mean, he was even told, hey, you can go into heaven. But he just, he knew he had so much faith, he was going to be in heaven. And that's how our faith should be. We should have so much faith that it fills the entire room, that it doesn't even fit in the house. If it was a physical item, I mean, hey, we should have, faith the size of bigger than the size of a mustard seed if you want to. Mustard seed is also big enough to move mountains. So, hey, if you have faith bigger than a mustard seed, you probably can move a whole planet. Who knows? That's not what it actually means. It means, you can overcome any obstacle you want to. That's what that means. But, you know what we mean with the metaphors. Those Christian metaphors are always so out there. But, chapter 50, verse 24 says, I'm going to read it. Then Joseph said to his brothers, I am about to die, but God will surely come to your aid and take you up out of this land to the land he promised an oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So this sets the stage for Exodus, Well, Exodus to Joshua. God was going to make Jacob's family a great nation, lead them out of Egypt, and bring them into the land he had promised them, the promised land. The nation will rely heavily on this promise, and Joseph emphasized his belief that God would do what he had promised. Jacob had full faith in God, even after he was about to die. And so, this is how our faith should be. Our faith should be strong enough that we know God is going to fulfill his promises to us. And, our faith should be so strong that when we die, that we know we're going to get in heaven. That's how strong our faith should be. And so finally, a little small description. The book of Genesis gives us rich descriptions of the lives of many great people who would walk with God. They sometimes succeeded and often failed, yet we learn much by reading the biographies of these people. Where did they get their motivation and courage? They got them by realizing God was with them despite their inadequacies. Knowing this should encourage us to be faithful to God, to rely on him for guidance, and to utilize the gifts and abilities he has given us. That's all of Genesis. I'm kind of sad that we're stopping Genesis now. We've been doing this almost for a year. But, hey, we finished Genesis. We're moving on to Exodus. Once we finish Romans, which is the only one we have to finish now. We have to do Genesis summary and Romans summary. But when we're done with Romans and Romans summary and Genesis summary, we're going on to Exodus. We're going on to Exodus, Ephesians, and James. And then, we're done with that. After that, we're moving on to Haggai, Matthew, and we're probably going to still be on Exodus while, we're, doing Haggai and Matthew. When we're done with Exodus, of course, we're going to Leviticus. So, hey, we got everything planned out. Before we do that, though, we're going to be doing the religious videos, like disproving other religions. So that's going to be fun. I've also it was a struggle to figure out how to disprove Quran. They were, other than the fact that they teach hate rather than love, I had to find many more because I simply can't bring up one fact because, that's not how it works. So I read articles. I decided to read the Quran for myself, and I found so many contradictions, and I can't wait to share it with you all. So, now, yeah, the Quran also can be translated in English. It's just not in Arabic as well, by the way. It was meant to be in Arabic just for Arabian people, But hey, I found an English version online, so hey, not so cool, huh? But anyway, now we're gonna pray. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, be able to explain it to the people. Thank you for the people. Thank you for them being able to listen. Thank you for giving them the time to listen. There's a time for everything, as you say in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. Thank you for allowing us to cast our burdens upon you, and keeping us rest assured and making sure we don't be shaken, Lord. Thank you for loving us. You knew us before we were in the womb. You knew us before we were even born. And you did. And you made us into a messenger of you, Lord. You made us to be, going out and delivering your name upon the people who don't know it. And that's why, we're here. The meaning of life is to obey you and serve you and spread your word, Lord. And so I want to ask that we all can have strong faith, even stronger than a mustard seed. Even though that can move mountains, I want to be able to move the whole universe in my faith, Lord. So please grow our faith together, Lord. As we transition over to Exodus, I ask that I'm still able to keep this wisdom that I've had for Genesis and keep it for Exodus, Lord. I ask that people continue being able to listen to the word of you, Lord, whether it's from me, from the pastor, from other influences, from Cliff Connectley. So, Lord, I just want to say thank you for all that. And in your holy name I pray. Amen. We're done with Genesis. Genesis summary this weekend. That's exciting, isn't it? I'm going to be up all night fixing the summary. I have 60 verses. It's usually 12 or 18 verses. Not that bad. Now it's 5 times the amount. It's 60 verses. That's a lot, dude. It's going to be long. So, that's awesome, too. I love the long videos. I mean, this was a long video. This was about an hour and 1 minute. Well, an hour and 2 minutes right now. So, hey. Don't just let me be the only source of the gospel, of the Bible. Go out and read it for yourself. I mean, I want to teach you it, and once you start learning from me, you should do it by yourself. I mean, you don't even have to learn from me to do it by yourself, but I mean, since you're here right now and listening, you should go out and do it by yourself, and that's why I'm telling you this. So, hey, just because, this long family lines doesn't mean the book is boring. We read a family line earlier in this video, and my grandma hated it. And she thought I did that on purpose because I didn't want to do it. But, I forgot that there was a long family line in chapter 46. But at least it wasn't the family line in, Chronicles and Numbers or Luke. So, hey, just because it's a long family line doesn't mean that you can overcome your struggles, alright? I don't know, that joke was supposed to be funny, but it kind of failed, didn't it? So, hey, trust in God, put your faith in Him, continue to pray in faith, and continue to keep that faith. Go and read the Gospels for yourself. Go and read Genesis. Hey, my favorite books in the Bible, my favorite Gospel is Luke. My favorite books are 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, Ecclesiastes, and Acts, and Genesis, and Luke. So, as well as Colossians. So, hey, go out and read the Bible for yourself. Don't let me be the only source. Don't let the internet, don't let influencers, don't let the pastor, don't let the church be the only sources of the Bible. Let yourself, let your heart guide you. So, hey, go out, have a good night. God bless you.